go live. Okay, for people joining this live stream, we are going over some features that are heading for version 12.3 of Wolfram language. And this is a variety of things: dates, astronomy, geography. Oh boy, there's a lot of things here. All right, where are we starting? Date and time. Extensively improved parsing and formatting of dates. Yeah, have you made that really fast now?
Yeah, we've been working on a handful of, low-hanging fruit improvements and then some structural improvements to make our calls into the library more efficient, to trim out some of the fat. So that's a process that's ongoing, but we wanted to also focus a bit today on some of the feature additions that we've talked about in the past and that we've added in.
Okay, all right, so let's take a look here. So should I look at these from date string? There's one place to document date strings.
Yeah, so this isn't necessarily new functionality. We've had functionality that takes date strings and turns them into date objects, but it gives us a place to collect a lot of documentation about how you input date strings into one specific location, and gives us sort of a canonical, this is how you handle dates in different formats. It also mirrors the syntax of date string. So we have the string and then the format as a second argument, rather than the old form, which is a single argument that is a list of the string and then a list of format elements. That's always a little complicated to look at.
So yeah, wait a minute. So this is equivalent to, if I say date object of one of these strings, I will get the same result typically as date object of from date string of that string. Is that correct?
Or yeah, from date string by default returns a date object. So yeah, you'll get the same result in both cases. This is just, rather than having a giant subsection in date object of this is how we handle all of these arguments, and if it's a date string.
It's a little weird. It's a little weird.
Well, we have a parallel in from absolute time is another case where, you can just give an absolute time to date object and it will return an absolute time, but we also want to kind of migrate away from the standard notation being that, you can slap any date form into a date object and you don't necessarily know exactly what it represents.
Okay, but does all of this stuff supported also in date object or not?
Yeah, so we're migrating in, but the syntax is a little different because you need to have an extra list around the input.
Well, what are you talking about? In which case?
Inside date object, if you say here's a string, it's a date, we'll parse it. If you say here is a string that is a date and this is the format, the specification you have to use is to add an extra list around there because they need to be collected into the first argument of date object, which is.
And what are the format elements for date object for that?
Yeah, so everything that's supported in from date string is also supported inside date object itself. So
I think the second argument here, it feels a lot more natural than in date object. So one doesn't think of adding this additional list with formats. While here,
I agree.
It's the second argument that feels very natural.
Yeah, I agree. This is better design. Maybe we should dedocument the extra sort of tentacles for date object.
Yeah, we were hoping to kind of point I've got a date string, I want to turn it into a date functionality to be this from date string as a landing page, because otherwise, we accept that input anywhere you can put a date in the language, but having to document it in the dozens of functions that take date inputs is kind of cumbersome.
Okay, but you're saying that the format where you give a string version of a date in a list with other interpretational elements is something that we support. And I'm saying maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should just dedocument that. And if you want to do it with these additional elements, you use from date string.
We certainly could go that direction. I think, certainly for the first version, we should support both of them, but we could dedocument.
No, we should go on supporting it. We can go on supporting it, but I think we should dedocument it because I think it's confusing. And that way, all of the complicated processing, as you've described, is in from date string.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a common user input error we get from customers when they're confused about why didn't this understand the date format. It's because the syntax is a little cumbersome. So I think, yeah, promoting this and de-emphasizing the old forms makes sense.
Right. I think we should de-document the date object of anything other than a pure string. And we should say, if you want to make it a non-default string, use from date string.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay.
You went farther than I thought you would.
It's only because I think it's a mess. I mean, I think the previous version is a mess.
I do too,
Okay.
but you don't always see that. So
Why does this have to be in a list here?
Well, right now it's in a list there because the elements framework usually wants it as a list. You should be able to specify it as just a single element too. Like that will be supported. But
Okay.
uh,
So how does this relate to what we've had previously in date string?
So in date string, this new association spec is basically fleshing out what we've had in date string beforehand. What we basically want to be able to do is the second argument of date string was typically just what this element's argument in the association is. There's a whole bunch of different elements you could potentially have. And what we've done is, in addition to the existing, just list a bunch of formats you want or put whatever delimiters you want in between them, we've sort of formalized the arguments in a format to say, these are the elements I want. This is potentially the language I want it in. If there's a variation in writing script, I may also want those elements in this writing script. I want these delimiters inserted between elements.
I thought we had a language option, just a straight top-level language option for this.
In other places, but not in dates.
Yeah, not in dates. So that's one of the new additions that we've added in.
Okay, but rather than having a symbol named language option, you're putting the language in the date string association.
Right.
Right. The language here is a part of the format specification together with other things. So having it as a symbol would make it too important in comparison.
Yeah, okay.
And it could be perhaps supported as a symbol, just in case it's the only thing that you write and you feel like using the symbol.
Yeah, we could certainly.
Why not?
There's a fair bit of precedence for if you just provide a rule in a place that an association could be. It's the same thing.
All right, but these are all default date strings.
Yeah, so they're using the default date string format, and then it is using the language and locale that you provide here. So
no, but you're also using default date string. I mean, if I said here, if I said yesterday, huh? I don't understand that. Why didn't that work?
What is the day that this prototype build was from?
I don't know, but hold on a second. Concatenates the specified elements in the order given.
Okay.
Yesterday.
That seems to be something that broke just yesterday.
Can you try now? Exactly. Okay, so it's
try a date list instead. Something got messed up with a hook and date object on there.
Really? 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 Oh, it's a time zone. That What happened there? I can't read Chinese, but I can tell that's not 2000. That's not January 1st, 2000.
Yeah, why is that switching the time zones over?
So it's probably using the so what? So in input, our time zone, and in output, their time zone or something like that.
Something is very wrong here.
Yeah, that's a configuration issue with the call into the library. If you add a fourth element to that date list of 1, does it?
Yeah, I know. I was,
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I was just my truffle finder for bugs
Yeah,
caused me to do this.
it's
quite uncanny, really.
Yeah, so it's something in a time zone adjustment that's
Well, there's something
changed
wrong
there.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I'll look into after this.
Okay.
But
okay.
The general idea here is with the language specification, we allow entities, obviously, language locales, and then there's some standard language codes for the ISO standards have prescribed. So, when it's a language option, it's pretty obvious how we would interpret any of those.
Okay.
The next section is that you can specify a language or a locale as
how do you
format.
what's the if I say Puerto Rican Spanish, is that going to be understood? Splaff. What are the linguistics like for Puerto Rico Spanish language locale?
No, we have not exposed yet the linguistics for these entities.
Okay, but we should.
Sure.
Okay. Locale dependent formats.
So we've had a handful of formats in the past, date time short, ISO dates that have prescribed elements and orders associated with them. But in a lot of cases for locale dependent dates, the order of elements and exactly which elements show up changes country to country and language to language. And so these are the new proposed names and proposed collections of compact dates called medium, long, and full dates that basically show either the compact forms are generally just the numeric elements for dates.
And what are these before? What were these before?
So these didn't actually exist before. We had date.
We got date short and things.
But that was basically it. We didn't have anything. It was basically, whether we show the full day of week and full month name or the abbreviated forms of them. And so here there's a difference between the medium and long forms include month but not day of week typically. And the variation between medium and long is whether it's an abbreviated month name or long name.
What about date short? What happened to date short?
So date short is still there. In this case, I didn't. So the date compact here is just showing the new versions. So you could put date short in that same list and it would.
Okay, but what does date short do relative to date medium?
So date short will do effectively. So it will add in the short form of the day of week.
Yeah, so this is not a good sequence.
Yeah.
Not a good sequence.
So yeah, these are tentative names that we need
to. It's not a good sequence because date short
is longer than date medium, which is not
wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, but something that it's important in these new formats is that they depend on the language also, because
so what? Yeah, we understand.
Day short is defined as a fixed order of these elements always, but these new ones are depend on the locale.
Okay, so I mean it's kind of date. Okay, so full date is full date,
right?
Which is your date full, right?
Yeah. We could basically invert the argument order and say, this is short date, medium date, long date, full date, but there's still the dissonance between date short is longer than what's typically referred to as the short.
Okay. First question is, do we want to keep date? I think we want date short because I think because we want month short and all these other ones short. Okay.
Right.
So I think we just need to rename, date for date full is just fine. Okay. So now well, look, I think time should probably be this one. I don't know whether that's already defined.
It is.
This
It doesn't
time-
include the time zone typically.
Okay, well then we should leave it that way. So where's the analogous thing for time? Okay, but anyway, so let's go back to date. So we've got.
So perhaps the important thing here is the fact that it contains the day of the week.
Yes, but wait a second. That's we've got day name elsewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So date time short. Date time. So date time. There's presumably a date time full that includes the time zone.
Yeah, so that you'd have to scroll slightly in your left-hand notebook, but
okay. But then date time full and probably date time short full. Maybe we should just be explicit. Date time date time zone doesn't work. Let's try date time full here.
okay.
Okay, so let's go back to the other one. Now, have we had 3921 before? Is that a format we've had?
It's not a preset format that we've had before now.
Okay. That's a good format, but I mean, what should we call it? Is there a standard name for it in the dating, so to speak, literature?
It's typically called the short date, at least within ICU and the Unicode standards. We could call it date numeric because it's typically defined by being just numeric elements. There's no month names, no day of week.
Yeah, I don't think that's terrible.
Date numeric.
I mean, let's see, date. I don't like it, actually. I think date. Digits might be better or something. Date, no names. I'm not sure. Let's think about this.
That will be confusing for languages like Japanese or Chinese, where anyway there is no name. Well, they use like the number of the month always.
I see. All right, so date compact. Yeah, I don't like that very much. Date minimal.
I mean, our normal named sizes are tiny, small, medium, and large.
Yeah, but we already blew that because we've already got small,
Yeah.
short. What are you saying? You're saying tiny, small, medium, and large. We didn't use small. That's really confusing, though, to have a date short and a date small. All right, we've got the full date, which we're calling date. The short date, which is just shortening the words.
Mm-hmm.
And digital?
I'm sorry?
Digital.
Digital? For what?
For just the numbers.
Maybe. Okay, date short is that. And now we've also got to have date short. Okay, we've got the full thing with the day of week.
Mm-hmm.
No, date short. Okay, This is the shortened version. Okay.
So what we're calling date, the full date is day of week and month. And date short is the shortened name for both of those. And then we have two new formats that are without the day of week.
I mean, this is what it is. Date without day name.
Mm-hmm. And date without day name short.
Yeah. If we called it date without day name, we'd at least understand what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But we will keep also this date full.
We're not
plus
keep,
the date.
no, just
because
date.
Because that's different from our current date.
Why?
So
So
because it changes depending on the locale.
Can it be?
Yeah, so if you scroll down in the notebook, there's some examples of element orders change in date full between different languages and locales, but the existing date that we have and have had in Wolfram language always has the elements in the same order, no matter what.
I'm sorry. So you're saying you want to put a different date thing that allows the order to change in different locales.
Yes. So basically, these four that are in that list are ones that are locale dependent. We could say they're date, locale, short, medium, long, and full if we wanted. Or just locale date, yeah, for the full one.
Well, no, and then we could, if we called it locale date,
Mm-hmm.
we could have the whole sequence.
Yeah.
And then we could leave our existing ones, date and date short.
That's probably a cleaner solution.
All right, so then this would be locale date compact or short.
Or
Now,
short.
I think we should say compact. As Edmund is pointing out on our live stream, it's also compacting the year.
Right. It's using a 2-digit year in most cases.
Right, that also depends on the locale, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so fine. So it's locale date. Is that compatible with short, the next one? That's compatible with this use of short, right?
It's compatible since it's using a short month name.
Okay, then the next one up is locale date March 9th. That's one we don't have, right?
Yeah, that's one we don't have. We could call it locale date or locale date medium.
I don't think we should call it locale date because I think that's confusing with the other one being, okay. Is it right to call it without day name, or is that not correct? Oh, wait a minute, I've got it wrong even anyway. No, that's locale date. Well, it is without date name.
Yeah,
and then there's
that and the short one don't have day names.
I hate using the word medium. It just somehow is kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
Could it be just plain locale date?
No, because it's not consistent with the full date from date over here.
I see. Right.
I think it's fine if we skip medium.
Well, I understand, but is it okay to call this long? March 9th, 2021.
Yeah, it's using the long name.
All right. Well, that's what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
Okay.
So also for the times, we will need that.
Yes, we will.
Yep. So we can use the same
Same.
system.
Yeah. You know, we have to fix these stupid Greek fonts where it's grabbing Greek letters from the symbol font there for everything that isn't accented. Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, and so
Okay.
this is in date
Yep, that's
format.
fine.
Basically takes the same thing, and then from date string we already talked about, but takes the same arguments, and
All right,
we can
that's fine.
interpret those inputs.
Okay, do I need to save this file, or do you have what we just worked out?
Yeah, I have all the notes.
Okay, all right, fine. Okay, good stuff. All right, on to the next thing.
Do we want to look at any of the pages? Date format or something like that?
Yeah, so date format new. Basically, it's just formalizing what we talked about with the new elements framework, allowing association specs and allowing you to
Yeah, by the
specify-
way, having a sample, I mean, as we did in that other documentation, is really quite important. Just going down and showing samples of all of them.
Yeah, so these tentative ones, we're having Tim work on a more clean version, but that's sort of a basic example of what we're going for.
Right. Okay. Ethan is asking about what about sols on Mars.
What? Sorry?
What about sols on Mars, the planet?
Sorry, I don't get the first word.
Sols, S-O-L-S. The analog of days.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
Yeah, the Mars rover is quoting them all the time these days.
I see. Well, once we have a time system adapted to Mars, we can do that, but we don't yet have that.
Well, hopefully it'll be ready for the next landers.
Yes.
It'll be ready. One thing we can be pretty sure of is it'll be ready before there are any humans on Mars.
I think so.
Cather is asking things about universe model data, which I think this is not the right group necessarily, and we're definitely talking about timescales much shorter than that. But let's pass on those comments. Probably it's not very hard to update that. We haven't looked at it in a while. Okay, let's keep going. What are we looking at next here? Entity language locale we already talked about. Time zone offset.
Oh yeah, there's a one note addition.
About leap hours.
Yep, about leap hours, that you can list possible time zone offsets for a given date. So we're working on integrating that into the language handling for date object, but there's a new new usage message, or not usage line, for you can list possible time zone offsets at a given time for a given time zone input.
Right. So
I don't understand. So sometimes it's returning just a single number and sometimes it's returning a list.
It's only returning a list if you use the 2-argument form, which previously wasn't used for. So this final section here, we didn't have this is the time zone and this is the date in that time zone. What are the possible offsets syntax? And that was what we added.
Okay.
So we wanted a way to report to the user whether we are during a transition.
So if you ran this for a couple of days ago when we started daylight time, there's a 1 hour period that doesn't actually exist in local time. And so say there.
What do we do in that case? If you type that in, what do you do? If you typed in 2:15 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
What does it do?
So what we're working on adding in now is that it will give you a warning message, and we can basically normalize out to moving ahead an hour as we do in date. It's the same thing. If you said it's February 31st, we'd move you on to March, whatever, but we could give a warning in the case that you're entering a time during daylight saving transition.
Fair enough. Fair enough. What's the specified base time zone?
So that is, you can say, what is the time zone offset between two different time zones? So I want to know the difference between my time zone and Tokyo's time zone instead of my time zone and GMT.
And what happens if you're in a transition, if two countries are transitioning to daylight savings time at the same time?
So that's part of the reason we don't have, so the two argument form where you provide a date is always relative to GMT, because if you run into that scenario where you're comparing two different time zones at a specific local time, it does potentially get complicated where there's a number of permutations of possible time zone offsets. So right now, the two argument form where you say, this is the time zone and this is the date, I want all possible time zone offsets, are always relative to GMT.
I see. But what about that last case that you give? Time zone base date.
Yeah, so in that case, we're basically resolving using when you specify that date will intrinsically have an absolute time in GMT that it's being measured against. If you're doing it during a time zone transition, it will normalize to the appropriate form, or you'd say, I want this to be the leap variant hour where we fell back in November and this is the second 1:30 in the morning.
I think it's really weird that the second argument, if it's a date, gives you a list as output.
Yeah, yes, we thought about that. This was a way of saving having another function, because if we don't put it in this function, this needs to be reported through a separate function. We could do that.
Hold on, I'm thinking.
Or alternatively, having the return argument change based on the time you put in. It would be a little strange if it. We can't do that.
No, that will just lead to bugs.
Right.
It has to be structural.
It's like a clock that's right twice a day or something. This will be a bug that happens twice a year.
Yeah.
It has to be something that we can detect structurally.
Yeah. That's why I'm a little bit concerned about the two argument form when it's a base there, has the same signature in effect.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So we do this type of thing in sun position, and you can give a date or a geoposition.
Yes.
What to do? This type of clear.
All right. Okay.
Structural thing.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Astro.
Okay. So that's for me. Yes. So we are starting this project, and we are not as advanced as I was hoping to be by this point. So, for example, we have solar time, we have updated sidereal time, and we have geoorientation data. But the astroposition, it's here to discuss the design, but I don't think I will be able to have it for 12.3. So the idea is in 13 to have astroposition and astrographics together.
Okay, so astroposition, right ascension, declination in degrees.
Yes. Right, so this follows geoposition in having the fourth argument. Given that time is a lot more important than distance here, now time becomes the third argument rather than the fourth. Alternatively, it could be the first, but that's perhaps too important.
Ethan comments that he's in the Lesser Antilles at the moment. Okay, interesting. Cool. Which doesn't have daylight savings. I think daylight savings is a largely political decision, isn't it? In different countries. It's in England, occasionally they were.
It was supposed to be abandoned in Europe this last year, but COVID happened.
Really? They were going to give up on it?
Yes. So it's probably coming back as soon as things are getting
Why did they not do it? Because of COVID.
Because they had a lot of other things to deal with.
I see.
I've heard that there are discussions mostly about which is the one we are going to choose. And they have asked people about whether they want winter time and summertime. And people tend to say summertime because it sounds nicer.
I did see that most countries that do transition off basically transition on to daylight time and never come off, which again seems a bit counterintuitive.
Who does? What?
So most countries, when they stop observing daylight saving time, they transition on to daylight time and then just never come off it, rather than going to what is quote unquote standard time. Again, because it's winter, summer differences. But
when I was a kid in England, there was some political party, I don't know, for some reason, decided on double summertime one year. I don't know why.
Japan talked about that this past year because summer was so hot, they were going to have daylight time be 2 hours in advance to try and throw off evening commutes into a cooler time period.
It's so weird. Okay, well, we just have to be on top of these things, which I guess are just curation issues, right? Of changes that get made.
Yeah. We use a standard time zone database for managing these things. Same reference that basically everyone pulls from.
Right. All that has to happen is somebody sort of corrupts that database and the whole world will be showing up an hour late. Will remote geopositions be taken into account properly? I'm not sure what that means.
Sorry, where are you reading?
Oh, from Ethan on the live stream. Will remote geopositions be taken into account properly? Not sure what that means. Let's just look at astroposition for a bit. Presents an event in space at distance r from the center of the Earth. Coordinate frame.
Right. So here there are two additional arguments. One is the coordinate frame, which we can think as a set of 3 axes plus a clock. And then the coordinate system, which will say how to extract the numbers from those axes. And the coordinate system can be cylindrical, spherical, typically spherical.
And is there a relativistic piece to this or not? Since you've got distance, when is that time? Where is that time?
That time is the time as measured by the coordinate system at the center, right? And this coordinate system can be inferred from the center, like doing synchronization of light rays sent back and forth or something like that.
But so that T refers to the center of the Earth.
Yes, exactly. And then, yes, the center of the Earth. Or if we have another frame, we could have a frame which is centered at the sun, for example, and then T would be time for the sun.
Oh, I see. So this is a coordinate frame, which is the analog. It's not a projection, really. It's an actual coordinate frame.
Right. So you can think more of the frame as the datum and the coordinate system as the projection.
Yes.
The coordinate system is just pure geometry. There's no physics there, but the frame has the physics. It's telling you where you are, and it takes into account the change of speed of one moving with respect to the other, this type of thing.
How does it take account of that? I mean, I don't understand. The frame.
So, for example, when you go from the Earth to the sun, and you have to change the time, you have to take into account the conversions of time, take into account the fact that one is moving with respect to the other. So there is.
Okay, I get it. Yeah, I get it. Okay, so given a frame, so where are some frames? Possible frames include the galactic frame, the supergalactic frame. Oh boy. Hey, how about for the frigging universe? We know roughly where the center of the universe is. Do we know it accurately enough to be able to use it as a frame?
What do you mean, the center of the universe?
The point at which we are expanding from.
I don't think there is such a concept.
Well, there's a rest frame of the cosmic microwave background. There's the center of mass of the cosmic microwave background.
Well, yes, which means there is a preferred velocity, but not a preferred position. So we can check that we are moving with respect to that preferred frame. but there is no preferred point in the universe that we could call the center. All points are moving with respect to any other point.
Yeah, fair point. Okay. I mean, there's also the question of frames. We're not going to deal with frames at other stages in the history of the universe yet.
No. This is mostly to change in the solar system or to the galactic frame, which are the important ones. Yeah, so the important things here, the SSB is the solar system barycenter. We could have another one centered at the sun, which is not the same thing, because the solar system barycenter is just outside the sun.
Mm-hmm. What about for galaxy surveys and so on? What coordinate system do they use? Are they just using? What are they using?
Well, they can be the equatorial frame is the most important one, right? It's just the fundamental. So that's why when we don't give any frame, by default is the equatorial one.
I see.
And then it depends. Catalogs, things that are related to the galaxy may typically use the galactic coordinate frame. But the galactic coordinate frame is a bit confusing because it's centered at the solar system barycenter. So not at the center of the galaxy.
I see.
So it's a bit confusing.
Okay, so then we also have time markers.
Exactly. So the specification of the frame needs this time system, which is the thing I was planning to start with, which is propagating all this stuff through data object, but we haven't done it yet. It's the very next step.
Okay. And so can the user specify a frame? Or is
yes.
It
the general, I mean, there are some famous frames, which are the ones that are typically used.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then the last line will allow you to specify the plane you're using, the center. Right. Those are the 4 things you need to know.
Okay, cool. Looks nice. Looks quite clean.
Mm-hmm. Great. So then Julian date is the time that will be used fundamentally. So that's the standard because it's a continuous counting of dates.
Yep.
And so it's very, very nice. And then it will handle leap seconds, etc. And so again, Julian date is a function that we will start by implementing time system there. I wrote a little page for time system. So you see a collection of the time systems I have in mind.
And this will all go with, I mean, in the end, this will go with astrographics, which will then have high resolution.
Right, exactly. We are collecting lots of data. There are huge catalogs out there of objects. So, yep. So the name of this is also a bit confusing. Some people call it time scale and others time standard. I don't like either of them.
I think time system is a better version, better name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this looks sensible.
Right, and there, for example, you see the B. This is the time at the solar system barycenter.
Right.
And the G is at the Earth.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. Question from Epi: does converting between frames frequently lose precision?
Lose precision.
Well, I mean, because you don't know where the center of the sun is or something. I don't think so. I think it's pretty precise.
Yeah. I don't foresee any major issue with precision there. Yeah, the rotations are very well known.
Right.
And I mean, since a few decades ago, there is this new international celestial reference frame, which is fully fixed. So that has helped a lot. Because until now, all these frames were moving, the galactic, ecliptic, etc. They are all moving.
What do you mean they're moving? How are they moving?
The ecliptic plane is moving, and I mean, everything is rotating. So, I mean, the ecliptic coordinates, what am I trying to say? So we are measuring the position of things that are moving with respect to frames that are also moving.
Yes.
And so you have to specify two dates. And that's the terminology in astronomy is the position of something at a given date with respect to this frame of this given date.
I see.
So the use of the International Celestial Frame removes the date of the second one, because this now is truly, I mean, to the best of our technology, it's stationary. Micro arc second precision.
By the way, oh, he doesn't ready yet. But solar time, what's the relationship between solar time and local mean time?
Local mean time. So solar time has this first argument that we decided. It was an option. We changed it to our first argument, mean time. So that's local mean time.
Okay.
And solar time, it's about up to 15 minutes with respect to that, right? Because the sun is sometimes moving faster, moving slower.
Yep.
Due to ellipticity of the orbit and the tilting of the Earth.
Yep.
And so, yeah, the examples further down show that difference. So that's a very important difference. It's called the equation of time. And it's one of these things that is traditionally written in the astrolabs. The astrolabs have a curve for the...
Yes, I remember. I mean, is this the right way for us to present the equation of time?
I think so. These things are all angles. Even though they are called times, they are actually angles. And the equation of time is a difference of two.
Yes.
We could have its own function, but seems a bit heavy.
What is it? It's solar time minus local time.
It's true solar time minus mean solar time.
Okay, so it's solar time, open bracket, close bracket, minus solar time, quotes mean.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's further down in applications. Yeah, that's a curve of.
That looks like it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is computed for. I mean, it changes with the year. That's something that not everybody realizes, and so we can compute it for thousands of years past. I think I have examples further down too.
There's similar things for every planet, right?
Yes, indeed. This curve is different for different planets. Yep.
And are we going to support that model arrow, geomodel arrow, whatever?
Yes, eventually when we have all the data needed. So this depends typically on three angles or three numbers: the the eccentricity of the orbit, the tilting, and the periastron position of the orbit.
Okay.
Yes. So sidereal time was also updated to have both mean and true forms, and which also allows describing nutation. And then there is this very large function which has control or reports all sorts of properties about the motion of the Earth and eventually of other planets. So this is a function that will report the differences of the different time systems. It will know everything about leap seconds, etc.
Okay.
Duration
nice.
of the day, the fact that the rotation of the rotation axis of the Earth is moving with respect to the Earth by a few meters. And of course, it's also moving with respect to the celestial frame. That's the precession and nutation effects.
Yeah,
now, something I don't know how to do is the uncertainty. So the first example, I think, or the second example shows the thing. So
why don't we have an annotation, a third argument that asks for, that can give either the full around form, or it can give just the uncertainty, or you can give just the central number.
I see. Okay.
And that's what we do in the entity framework. Seems like a reasonable way to do it.
Okay.
Most of the time, you just want the central number.
Right. I like that. So I think if you go a little bit further down, there is an example. Yes, this one in which we could return.
Yeah, nice.
So that's for a given day, it tells you the difference with respect to the 86,400 seconds.
Right. But I think most of the time you just like, give me the best value, I'm happy.
Right.
So
Exactly.
I think a fourth argument is or third argument in this case is the right thing. We need to wrap this meeting because we have another one coming right up. But I just want to, oh boy, okay. All things blocking that becoming default.
Yes. So our plan is to have vector maps by default in 13.
Right. Yeah. Well, so you're working through all these things.
Yep. Yeah, we are.
Okay. And Ethan is asking about dynamic geographics having vectors, which will be coming, right?
Yes, eventually. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yes. So dataset and trees require their own meetings.
Indeed, they do. Yes.
And then around, yes, we just wanted to mention that around is now for elementary operations is a lot faster.
As a result of compilation, yeah.
It's a mixture of moving some things to C and compilation, indeed.
Okay. Cool. Very nice. All right. We should wrap up here. And I know we have some of us have a different meeting to get to. Great. Well, lots of nice stuff. Very nice stuff. The Astro thing is actually going to be simpler than I thought it would be. I mean, I think it's all the experience we have with all the geo stuff probably helps.
Indeed, and for the graphical part, much of the code will be reused.
Good. And do we get vector? I don't even know what it means to have vector astrographics. That doesn't mean anything.
Well, it does, because most of the information is going to be points and lines for the constellations and things like that.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then a background. We need just a very good image of the background with the galaxy, etc.
Right.
That will be it.
Oh, wait a minute. Ethan is commenting that previous comment about remote times, locations, and time. He says his Mathematica says his time is 5 p.m. even though it's 6 p.m. Well, it shouldn't. How could it? Does it? Well, if your computer doesn't know where you are, then you're out of luck. If
Has Mathematica been running since before the time change?
That's a good question. But I mean, local time of here better give you the. Oh boy, ha. Well, for me, here is 1,000 miles away because of the way that my internet is configured. Right. So that's confusing. So it depends on, what does it depend on? What is it picking up? Dollar time zone.
Dollar time zone is reading the current time zone offset provided by your operating system based on the.
Oh, no, it is right. It is right. No, it isn't right. It's 6 p.m. right now where I am. Oh, but this is, okay, what is going on here? What is going on?
What I mean, your dollar geolocation probably is that of Champagne, right? Because you are in the VPN of Champagne.
No, well, but time zone -5.
What is here? That's Champagne.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So we have a dollar system time zone, which is the time zone reported by the computer, and then dollar time zone can be reset. So if the user wants to say dollar time zone goes to whatever.
What the hell is that?
Well, I mean, that's the one that we cannot change. That's the one.
Look, my computer is saying 6 p.m.
But, well, I guess the question is, does it change when you are out of the VPN?
I'm not in VPN.
Or you are not in VPN?
No.
Yeah,
but
I mean, the setting of dollar system time zone is not dependent on your dollar.
How can my clock up here in the corner say 6 p.m. and my system time zone is saying something which corresponds to time 1 hour different?
You only have 94. I presume this session hasn't been active since Saturday, right?
That's correct.
As if it's.
Oh, wait a minute. 12.2. I couldn't guarantee that. Let me look at something here.
Yeah, if you
Isn't there a session time that tells you how long the thing's been running?
Yes, but let's just try here. Oh,
yeah. So that previous session was
that is a
by-
Bugosaurus. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, what's going on there, guys? I mean, I admit that's a very corner case.
Yeah, it's a corner case that is enshrined in some legacy behavior, and it's why we want to migrate away from strict numeric time zones to modern time zones. But one of the issues.
Okay, so basically, that should at least be impossible issues in the documentation.
Yeah.
Not that anybody will ever notice it, but
it will happen once or twice a year that you start your session time zone transitions, and your session doesn't get tickled to say, "Oh, my time zone's changed." So
this also happens to $geolocation. If you move, it doesn't change. Just
yes, I understand. If you're on, right.
Right. It's a possible issue. It's not necessarily a design problem, but it's something that with using modern time zones, you don't run into it.
Okay, so Ethan it's on the island of Dominica. Okay, so let's just see what happens if I say, sounds like an interesting place. Wait a minute, Dominica. Okay, and now I say local time. It says 6 p.m. So I'm totally confused. Let's try, we could try in the existing version. That was a very annoying bug. That says 6 p.m. I'm confused. It says 6 p.m. Oh no, this is my version that's been running since whenever, suggesting there might be a bug in, right, one last thing to debug, and then we need to go to another meeting. Just waiting for the thing to be, to base its time on a satellite internet thing, where it thinks that you're at some astro position. Well, this is right too. So I'm confused. I don't know what's wrong. Okay, sorry. Send in a bug report if there's something going on, Ethan. Okay, we gotta run. Thanks, guys.